Hello and welcome to Unmask Privileged Access in Azure. Today we're going to be going through this lab, and this lab starts pretty different from the other labs in that we just get this image. And so in this image, this is our access point. This is our starting information where, usually they'll give us an IP or a set of credentials. Here, they'll just give us this image, and I circled the focal point of this image, which is this sticky on the wall. And so what they're trying to teach us here in this initial point of the lab is that if somebody takes a picture with their iPhone, you can go ahead and use this tool called GIMP. So let me open it up for you. And now let's go ahead and throw this image in there, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And so now that it's in there, you see this blur up the top that's blurring the sticky? Well, we can take that blur off by going to colors and brightness contrast. And then we can just adjust the brightness until, as you can see here, there it is. It says summer days, and it's a little bit blurry, but I'll show you the final product over here in my diagram. As always, I have made a little diagram for this lab, and we'll go through it in order to fully absorb the learning outcomes of this lab. Now, I do have to warn you, there's a little bit of group enumeration and group manipulation in order to get more access, as you'll see. But once we do extract this password out of the image, we get the credentials of the user, Mattias, and his password summer days. So now that we have creds, we just go ahead and authenticate. If you're not familiar, AZ login gives us access to multiple different services because it utilizes the refresh token. So this command and authorization method is pretty critical. I mean, it's pretty convenient. Otherwise, you're going to be having to manipulate access tokens and things like that in order to get the different access manually. But we're also going to connect with the connect-az account method, just because some commands are convenient to use from that library. And lastly, we're going to connect through connect mggraph. And so before we do anything, I want to kind of make it clear that our first step in this specific lab scenario is to do some group manipulation. And I'll show you why that is. Let me go ahead and bring over my Kali over here. And so if we go to users and on Road Recon, we search up Mattias, we'll see that Mattias has an owned object of this group, device admins. And I just wanted to show you this in Road Recon because it's the simplest way to clearly see the group, and then very simply click on the group and we are able to see the description, allows resource to be assigned to desktop support team. And so as you can see here, we have owned users, Mattias. However, member users, there's nobody. And so one thing about being an owner of a group is that you can be in that group. But Mattias not being in that group, our obvious course of action is to add Mattias into that group in order to see if we have any further access. And so let's go ahead and do that through connect mggraph. because this is the authentication method that connects us to the Graph API endpoint, in which we are then able to manipulate the users and groups and things like that. And if you wanted to use a COI method in order to find ownership, we can also use this command. But a bit of a disclaimer, it is going to run through every single group to see if our user owns it or not. So it does take a little bit of time. The nice thing about this lab is that there was no multi-factor authentication to bypass. However, the exciting part about this lab is, as you'll see, there is a nice little virtual machine action at the end. Okay, and so we did get a hit for Mattias, as you can see with this group ID. With this group ID, we found that Mattias is in fact an owner. And so once we figured that out with the group ID, if we wanted to manually check on this group to see, okay, what is the group that he has ownership over, we can use this command, get AZAD group. And as you can see here, the same information appears, the description and the name device admins. And so with this in mind, let's go ahead and add the user through this command. And so this is the command to add the user to the group. Using specifying the group and then specifying the user, we are able to get into that group. And I'm not going to use it just because I already added this user to the group. I just did the lab before doing the video. And now I just wanted to show how we can confirm this change in access. So firstly, I think you might be assuming that if you use getAZ role assignment and then specify the user's object ID, that you would get his role assignment. But let's go ahead and see if that's true. Okay, so we got this this scope over here for the virtual machine called Automato 1. However, this is the same resource that we had access to before we changed our group, before we entered the group that we own. And so why is it that we are not able to see the rest of our scopes for the other resources that we can see? For example, here, I'll show you the resources. As you can see, we have a lot more resources than just Automato 1. And so why can't we see it with just this scope for the user? Obviously, the user is who we want to see the scopes of. But this is because admins on Azure don't set permissions, don't set role assignments for specific users. They don't even set them for specific groups. So let's assume that we wanted to see the role assignments of the group MBT RG5, thinking that, maybe this resource group is what has these scopes. And as you can see, it is invalid. And this is because admins set role assignments on the subscription scope. And if we use this command, which checks the role assignments of the subscription scope, we get all of the role assignments. And a little bit of an explanation for this. Why would an admin apply a role at the subscription level instead of a specific resource group? Well, this is because they want to make sure that they can add more resources, or if resources are automatically added to that scope with associated identifications, such as like being in that group or being in the same resource group, that the role assignments that they already have in place will apply to those new things. And so there's a little bit of a management efficiency going on, a little bit of a reduction of time being used over managing all these different assets if they apply the role assignments to the scope of the subscription instead of the scope of just the user or the group. And as you can probably already tell, it is much more secure if you were to add it to the user or the group. But because of things like this, because of efficiency, because of common human error and kind of ease of use values, admins end up using the subscription level scope. And so just like before, let's go ahead and see all the resources. And as you can see, we have an IP address, we have a virtual machine, and we have a key vault, and we have a network interface. And so with this IP stuff and with this network interface, let's go ahead and check for public IPs. With this very simple command, we can extract the public IPs accessible to us in the environment. And it's truncated over here. However, we can get the untruncated version by adding this FL flag. And so if you scroll up a little bit, you get this IP address. And with an IP address, we are now able to use an Nmap scan, pull up my Kali, and as you can see, we discovered port 22. So I'll leave that to run whilst we go ahead and explore the key vault. So let's go ahead and use this command and I'll explain it. AZ key vault secret show is obviously going to show the secret in the key vault named device. Device is new, which is in Automato 01. And so using that, we are able to retrieve this value, which is an RSA private key. And since we did catch the fact that there's a port 22 open on this virtual machine from attaining the IP address of it, then we can kind of gather that this is a machine that we can SSH to through this RSA private key. And so I have that command right here, and I copy pasted the RSA into my Kali. So let's go ahead and use that. It's RSA1 in this case for me. And now we are in. And so let's go ahead and cat. We cat attack password. We're able to see that there are a bunch of users such as Lindsay and Security and Pony. I think Pony is just another lab user, but Security and Lindsay seem legit. But anyways, lateral movement here in this case does not rely on any sort of in-host lateral movement between the local users. Actually, it's a lot simpler than that. We're just going to cat the history, and we're going to see that somebody used in plain sight an AZ login command to another user. And now we have the credentials for this other user. So just like before, we're going to want to re-authenticate using these credentials. And now let's see what resources we have. And so it looks like we found ourselves an automation account. And I organized here some enumeration for automation accounts that I'm going to copy and paste and explain them to you. So get AZ automation account. We're simply going to be getting the details through using the correct command for the correct service. And then, as always, for any resource, we're going to specify the resource group and the name of the resource. And as you can see here, we just get some basic information of the automation account. And so, as you could probably tell with the term automation, this is a service that automates things within the infrastructure. And it does so through these things called runbooks. And so using the commands to get the runbooks, we see that there's this runbook called schedule-vm start stop. So this probably starts and stops VMs on a scheduled basis. And anyways, I just wanted to mention that even before, when we just specified the resources, we not only get the automation account, but we also see here the runbook is also mentioned as a resource. And these automation accounts have variables. And so if we wanted to retrieve the variables, we can see that we get two variables here. We find the flag and the value for the flag. So this is the end of the lab. However, we do also find this variable called password, which the value of it is an actual password called automation. And so with that in mind, if you see a password called automation for an automation account called automation-dev, then you might be thinking, well, maybe we can impersonate this service and get more privileges. And I thought that maybe this leads to like a different lab. So I did delve into it a little bit. I went over to, here, let me show you. I went back over to Road Recon and I went to the service principles, I believe, looking for anything automation related. And I find here SP automate. And so with this service principle, I took the object ID of it, combined it with the password that we found in order to make this command. So let me copy paste this and explain it. Firstly, we have this app secret variable, which is simply going to convert to secure string the password that we have. And then we have this cred variable, which takes the object ID of the service principal alongside the secret. And then we have the connect AZ account command, which is supposed to utilize the variables that we made in order to connect. However, as you can see, this was an incorrect approach and it's invalid. However, we did end up finishing the lab. And if you find out how to use this password, please let me know, message me or comment. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'll see you guys in the next lab. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something from this lab. Please let me know in the comments what kind of cloud labs or cloud penetration testing techniques or methodologies you want to see. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, and see you later.